Welcome to Podkey Fantasy Football, where draft hype meets a little pressure testing. A lot of August fantasy advice is really confidence theatre. The edge usually comes from asking a simpler question. What do we actually know, and what are we just pretending to know? Start with injuries, because this is where bad certainty gets expensive. NFL injury reporting is still a fog machine. If Baker Mayfield is clearly labouring with an arm issue, or Amon-Ra Brown can play through a rib injury without even being listed, the lesson is not to think you've found a scandal, it's to stop treating official listings like a clean dataset. For fantasy drafts, that means adjusting range of outcomes instead of making binary decisions. Sam Laporta's hip, Jeremiah Love's high ankle sprain, George Kittle's recovery, those are contingency planning stories. Use IR spots, add late insurance at tight end, and price in missed time risk. What you should not do is turn every uncertain report into a full fade or a full buy. The clearer durability flag is workload history. Christian McCaffrey, coming off roughly 450 touches at age 30, is a real warning sign because that kind of volume has historically been hard to repeat with another top 5 finish. That's stronger evidence than camp optimism either way. At running back, the market is trying to separate ceiling from survival, and sometimes it gets the reason right, even if the ranking feels aggressive. Chase Brown is the cleanest example. If you're ranking him near RB5, the case is not random hype. It's late 2025 production, 3-down ability, goal line usage, and a Bengals environment that can support high-value touches even if Samaje Perine still mixes in. Kenneth Walker in Kansas City is another bet where context matters as much as talent. The playoff sample showed real juice, the contract implies intent, and Andy Reid's system creates receiving equity. That doesn't guarantee a top finish, but the path is obvious. Jonathan Brooks is more fragile as a thesis, but the price can make it worth it. Around the RB26 to RB30 range, you're paying for uncertainty, not perfection. If the ACL recovery is truly on schedule and the snap share shows up early, 800 to 900 yards, and usable touchdown volume is a reasonable base with top 15 upside above that. On the other side, beware backs whose fantasy value was mostly brute force volume. Chuba Hubbard and Quinton Judkins types can look stable in season-long totals, while efficiency and injury context are quietly pulling the floor downward. And Alvin Kamara's recurring MCL issue is exactly the kind of news that shifts adjacent value more than headline value. Travis Etienne benefits because early down, passing down, and goal line work can start concentrating fast when a veteran's health gets shaky. Backfield ambiguity is everywhere, and preseason usage matters most when it's telling you a team does not want one guy doing everything. The Giants, Lions, and Chargers all look like cases where early season touch certainty may be lower than drafters want to admit. That's not a reason to avoid the entire room, but it is a reason to discount weekly confidence. With handcuffs, the key distinction is role inheritance. You want backups who could absorb goal line work or all 3 downs, not just a few third and long snaps. That's why Marshawn Lloyd's first-team work matters, why Mike Washington Jr. has appeal as a pure upside stash, and why Tank Bigsby, Brian Robinson, and Zach Charbonnet stay relevant. A nominal RB2 who would still be in a committee after an injury is a much weaker bet than his label suggests. And third-down specialization alone is often overrated. Catching a few passing down snaps can raise the floor a little, but without early down or scoring work, it rarely creates league-winning weeks. Wide receiver is where efficiency gaps can hide in plain sight. Devontae Smith's target rate without A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle's strong per-route profile in a low-volume pass game, and T. Higgins scoring 21 touchdowns over his last 27 games all point to players whose prices may be lagging their actual upside. Zay Flowers and Mike Evans fit the same ADP mismatch bucket on some platforms. If the market is giving you a proven target earner or end zone specialist at a discount, you don't need a breakout story to justify the pick. Rookies and deep sleepers need a tighter standard. Carnell Tate has a believable path to immediate targets. DJ Stribling's preseason target rate is absolutely worth noticing. Casey Concepcion and Casey Concepcion have role-based paths too. But preseason production is still a weak signal by itself. Joint practice reports and route usage matter more than a hotbox score because fantasy history is full of August stars who turned into September decoys. Strong usage should move you toward a late pick or watch list spot, not toward paying full freight. Tight end is one of the few places where paying up can actually solve a weekly problem. If Brock Bowers gives you a historic season, a round 2 price can be justified because the positional edge is real. McBride and the rest of that elite cluster belong in the same conversation, if the draft room lets them fall to sane prices. The injury caveat still matters. Laporta's hip and Kittle's Achilles recovery change the cost-benefit math, not necessarily the player evaluation. Kittle can still be elite per game, but health risk makes him more attractive around round 8 than at a premium. If you miss the top tier, waiting usually beats reaching. That's where profiles like Juwan Johnson, Dalton Kincaid, if his route share climbs, or a discounted Mark Andrews become more interesting than forcing a middling option around early. Quarterback is mostly a format question. In Superflex, Josh Allen at 1.01 is defensible because scarcity is real. In 1 QB leagues, 2026 depth pushes you toward patience. Late rushing quarterbacks are especially important because they need less passing efficiency to matter. Malik Willis and Kyler Murray are the obvious ceiling bets there. Dak Prescott looks underdrafted if CeeDee Lamb is healthy, while Jordan Love's range is capped a bit more by Green Bay's run tendency. Brock Purdy has a cleaner top 5 case than his draft cost often suggests. A lot of draft mistakes are really context mistakes. The right start from pick 2 is different from the right start at the 10-12 turn, and 3WR formats naturally raise the cost of waiting too long at receiver. The running back barbell still makes sense in many rooms. Secure usable RB volume early, build receiver depth in the middle, and then fire late picks at handcuffs and contingent value swings. Platform ADP is part of that structure. A player isn't just a good pick in the abstract. Chase Brown on ESPN and Zay Flowers on a cheaper platform are different strategic opportunities than those same players at full market price. The same discipline applies in Dynasty. Paying a 2027 top 4 pick for Colston Loveland is too rich because you are giving away transformational upside for a player who still carries development risk. 2 later firsts, or a first plus a second, spreads that risk better. And if you're rebuilding, strong capital for veterans should usually be accepted quickly. A James Cook deal built around Javonte Williams, Brenton Strange, and future first and second round picks is the kind of return that gives you flexibility instead of clinging to a productive but aging asset. The best fantasy drafts usually look less heroic in real time than people want them to. They're just disciplined about uncertainty, price, and role. That's enough of an edge more often than not. Thanks for listening to Podkey Fantasy Football. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.